I'm really happy to introduce to you David Brant, who's the executive director of the Aspetuck Land Trust. I've had recently, I think we had some guests a few months back from the New Haven Land Trust, and when I was on with that group, I mentioned that I had moved down from Reading, Connecticut. Now I live in Black Rock, but in Reading I had also a very active land trust. I'm pretty sure that David Brant would say that the Aspetuck Land Trust may trump them all because it represents more than just one town, but it's a collective, I guess, really responsible for a lot of the preservation and activities in Westport, Fairfield, Weston, and Easton. And not only is David the executive director, but he's a fan of WPKN too, so that's always nice. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming in. You sent me a little fact sheet on a couple of different aspects, but am I correct that you guys are, you cover all those towns?
We do. Thanks for having me in, Steve.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Great to be here sitting in the studio. We're a regional land trust. As you said, we preserve land in Weston, Easton, Fairfield, and Westport. We actually own half of an island in Ash Creek and Bridgeport. We own the Bridgeport side.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay,
yep.
Yeah.
And we do have some land.
Right off of St. Mary's?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. And there's an osprey platform on that island.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have some land in Reading and some land in Wilton. But as you said, Reading has a great land trust.
Yeah, and they've done an excellent job. Some of the notes that I was looking at your website, the Aspetuck Land Trust maintains 45 nature preserves that are open to the public. I looked at a number of them. I've spent most of my time at Trout Brook, which is a really beautiful facility. I guess that would be in Weston, I think.
Well, it's mostly Easton. There's
okay.
45 acres in Weston, and the majority of it's in Easton. But Trout Brook really is our bread and butter. It's our largest property. It's 1,009 acres. We have over 10,000 visitors a year there, 20 miles of trails. It's a great story, actually, how that came to be.
Yeah, I've approached it from one of the entrances on I think that's Black Rock. I think Black Rock, yeah.
That's the Jump Hill section of Trout Brook.
Right.
Trout Brook has three sections, the northern section, which we call Jump Hill, the southern section, which we call Crow Hill, and then the middle portion, which is Trout Brook Valley, sandwiched in between. And that was actually acquired in 1999 for $11.2 million.
Are you on an acquisition mode right now? I mean, what are some of the different projects that are first and foremost that you're working on?
Well, we're always looking at properties, and we're taking a more proactive approach in terms of properties that we're looking at acquiring or land that we're looking at preserving. We're working on a big forest block assemblage project up in Weston and Wilton with the Wilton Land Conservation Trust, which is very exciting, and we're looking to put together a greenway in Fairfield by picking up, preserving a number of properties there. And we're looking at creating a greenway that will essentially span 17,000 acres and run through our four towns. So our board is looking at that right now, but it's a big vision that we're thinking about pursuing over the next 10 years, which should be very exciting.
Right. Now, you're also a membership organization, and you have, how many members do you have in the Aspetuck Land Trust now?
Well, we have nearly 1,200 members, supporters, and I want to have a shout out to our members because, like WPKN, you have listener supporters, we have members that support us, and without those members, we cannot do anything. So our members mean everything to us, and it's really important that, people put their money where their mouth is and support things that they believe in, whether it's open space or community radio or homeless shelters. But Aspetuck Land Trust members really make it all possible for us.
And what are some of the member benefits in terms of if we have some listeners out there that might be using some of these preserves, but they might like to take the next step to actually be a financial partner with the Land Trust?
Well, outside of the joy and satisfaction of knowing that you're supporting a group that preserves really the beauty of local open space, our members do get exclusive access to our blueberry patch in Trout Brook Valley. We have 1,000 blueberry bushes, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We
First picking rights, is that
first picking rights. Last year was an epic year for blueberries. We hope this year will be the same. And we do have special events and lectures, etc. But those are the big ones.
You have a lot of events, I see. I looked at the calendar, and many things have passed, but I saw something about a spring hawk migration walk with a specialist, and there was a wildflower walk in another preserve, and I see that you actually are hosting something on National Trail Day, the National Trail Day hike with David Brant. That's Saturday, June 2nd at 9 a.m. until 11:30, and you're going to be doing this in the Trout Brook Valley Preserve, and it's a 2-mile hike. And talk a little bit about that. He says, learning how land management plan is designed. So, what are some of the highlights of that kind of walk? What are some of the things that you would like to point out to people in that kind of setting?
Well, it's interesting because, we actually have 150 properties in 7 towns, but, we can't actively manage all those properties. We just don't have the budget. So we kind of pick and choose our battles and try to put our money where we can get the biggest conservation return. And so in Trout Brook Valley, that 1,009-acre property, we've done a number of projects to actually improve habitats for wildlife. So we're actually cutting down trees in certain areas and creating early successional habitat, which is essentially young growth, which birds much prefer over taller trees. We've planted pollinator meadows in the Trout Brook Valley orchard area to benefit certainly birds and pollinators like bees and butterflies. We've done a number of projects like that. We've installed a fish ladder on one of our streams. So there are things that we can do to kind of help things along. On our properties. Connecticut 150 years ago didn't have any trees, and now we essentially have a monoculture of trees all the same age in the state. And, wildlife likes different types of habitats, and so we're actually trying to create more diversity in the matrix of Trout Brook Valley so that more wildlife can benefit.
Excellent. Well, there's just so many different things we could talk about, but we're probably going to have to wrap things up a little bit. But why don't you mention a little bit about your website for the Aspetuck Land Trust, again, that covers Westport, Fairfield, Weston, and Easton. And I've been very fortunate to have David Brant, the executive director, here in the WPKN studios. But there's a lot of fascinating information. There's maps, right?
Yep.
And what other types of things can one find out? You must have maybe some other events coming up or summer camps or things like that.
Well, if you go to our events page, you can see all the events that we do have coming up, including our Echo Camp, which we started last year to get more kids involved in touching nature. As we all know, there's too much technology in our lives these days.
Yes.
And so it's really important to get kids outside. And so we're trying to do more of that work. It's really important.
And is that for any particular age group, or is it?
For middle school students.
Middle school. Okay, great. And we talked about Did we talk a little bit about the Save the Weston Wilton Forest initiative? If you want to talk about that, we have a minute or so.
We did, but I can certainly add to it. I mean, we're trying to preserve 350 acres, in this area along the Weston Wilton border. And why it's important is because it's connected to over 2,000 acres of already protected open space.
Okay.
And so, wildlife needs a little wiggle room to wander. And it's a great opportunity for us to basically protect a land area the size of Trout Brook Valley and connect it to a much larger land area connected to properties like the 1,700-acre Devil's Den Preserve and other state and water company land. So it's a big project. We're trying to engage the community to get behind it and also to do things in their own yards, like planting pollinator plants to support the ecological health of the area. So everybody can contribute, roll their sleeves up, make a positive difference.
Excellent. Great. Well, thanks. Again, we've been listening to David Brant, who's the executive director of the Aspetuck Land Trust, and National Trail Day coming up June 2nd. You can get some information if you want to join David on his walk as well. And otherwise, the website is full of great information. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.